So, we're starting Unit 2, which is Chapter 6 in your biology book. And in your biology book, it starts with the crown of God's creation. Yes, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. I love how it goes over in your book, if you read the first part, on how it's impossibility for us to have been evolved from goo to you. Because we are so complex, and even our cells, our minute cells, are so complex. It could not have just happened. So let's start studying and let's think about this, okay? So let's think about the human body. In your book it says it's a museum of science and wonders, and indeed it is. We are the Bible saying, yes, we are made in God's image, and everything is so precise that if one thing would stop working, then of course we could not go on living. But how God has put each of these parts in, from our eyes to our ears to our smell to our heart to our lungs to our brain and our circulatory system and our reproductive system, it all is fearfully and wonderfully made. We have 100 trillion cells in our body, and each cell is enormously complex. It has compartments, it has factories, it has motors, it has sensors, it has control systems in just one of our cells. And of course, the DNA, we have 60 billion miles of DNA. Can you imagine that? And 70 billion terabytes of information can be stored, more than most computers, more than any computer you can imagine. In our bones, they're as strong as concrete and just as resilient, and our muscles can lift several times our own weight. And our dexterity in our fingers can do all kinds, even to putting together the minutest thing like a little watch. Our heart has 4 chambers, and in these 4 chambers, it beats 100,000 times per day. And it's beating 60,000 miles of blood vessels. So through 60,000 miles a day. Can you believe that? And it's providing the food and oxygen. It's our circulatory, it's our transport system of our body. And our red blood cells, they're manufactured 2.4 million of them per second in our body. We are indeed fearfully and wonderfully made. And our lungs, basically the oxygen in our lungs go onto these little chambers, gas chambers called alveoli, and there's 60 million of them in our lungs. I mean, can you imagine that? Like the size of a volleyball court if we put them all out. That is so amazing. And our eyes, how do we autofocus? And we have this high resolution. Can you imagine that we could see out into the giant galaxies and then see tiny, tiny little pieces of reading material, huh? And our sneezes. No, I'm not going to talk about a sneeze. Anyway, going on and to our ears. Our ears taking in these sound waves. How do they do that? They're so delicate, and we can hear the faintest rustling of leaves to the loudest of sounds. You can imagine. And our smell. What can we smell? 10,000 different chemicals. 10,000 different chemicals. More than any modern sensor can sense. We can smell them. And we can differentiate with them by our brain. As our smell goes to our brain, we can say, oh, that's a rose, And then, of course, there's some pretty bad smells, too. But going on, our brain is the most marvelous control center. It's 31 pounds, and this super computer, it has 100 quadrillion electrochemical connectors. That's a lot of electrochemical connectors in our nerves, right? That is amazing. And the brain is more superior than the best of man's technology, of course. And now let's talk about our body cavities. So, how many body cavities do we have? Well, they have listed 4 or 5. Well, let's talk about it. First of all, we have our brain cavity, right? That cavity is where our brain is. And then the spinal cord or spinal cavity that goes down. And that's where your spinal cord is. And then in your chest here, what do you have in your chest area? You have your heart and your lungs and your kidney. Not your kidneys. Your heart and your lungs and your esophagus and your windpipe and your thymus and your aorta. All these are in your chest. So that's the next cavity, your chest cavity. And then we have the abdominal or pelvic cavity. That holds many organs, right? We can go and say our liver and our stomach and our pancreas and our spleen and our kidneys and our bladder and our small and large intestine and onto our gonads, our reproduction organs. These are all housed inside our abdominal pelvic cavity, right? So 4 cavities, but abdominal pelvic goes together. So cranial, spinal, thoracic. Thoracic is this area. Just remember, this is your thoracic. You're going to get that word over and over. That's your chest. And the abdominal, you know where your abdomen is, okay? And then we have the word viscera. What is a viscera? V-I-S-C-E-R. Those are what lines, that is what lines the soft internal organs of your heart, lung, and your intestines is all called viscera. So when you're looking at a picture of internal organs, you'll see this smooth lining, how that's smooth kind of, and would feel smooth kind of. Oh yeah, you know what I mean, kind of like a snail and stuff. These are viscera. Viscera is a word you need to know. And then our systems. Let's go through their systems. So we're going to go through them in detail in the next few chapters. So let's go through them quickly. So we have the systems. First, what is a system? In your book, it says a system is a group of structures that function together as a unit to perform a definite job. So they're just structures working together so they can perform the job together. That's a system. So we have a system. There's 11 systems. We can go through those systems, 11 of them, from the cardiovascular system to the reproductive system, and we'll go through them real quick. But the systems, in a system, the systems have organs, specific organs. So we have systems and then we have organs. And the organs are the smaller units in the systems that are working together in a system together. Those are called organs. And then in the organs we have tissues, different kinds of tissues that they're put together to make that specific organ. And we'll define those kind of tissues coming up in the next section. And then we have cells, clear down to the cells. And you'll see there's so many different kinds of cells. It's ridiculous. So we have from cells, minutest building blocks of a living being, from cells to tissues, to organs, to systems. Just remember that. It goes from a cell, and these cells get together, they make a tissue, and the tissues get together and they make an organ, and the organs get together and they make a system, and the systems are all working together for a certain job that they're performing in our body. 4 things. Cells, right? Cells, onto tissues, right? Tissues, onto organs, and onto systems. How amazing. So let's go over these really quickly, okay? And you can go over in your book quickly, and I put some notes here, so I'm just going to kind of jot through them because, like I said, we're going to go in depth in them. So, cardiovascular. Cardio means heart. Vascular means heart flowing, the heart flowing system. Cardiovascular is the heart, the arteries, the veins, and the capillaries. Okay, you have the heart. So the heart's pumping into what? The arteries. So the heart's pumping into the arteries, and the arteries going to flow out. They're pumping hard. Arteries pump hard, boom, ba-doom, ba-doom, pumping hard, and they go into all the way down into our little capillaries. And from our capillaries, there's the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide and nutrients in the midst of our capillaries. Those areas, those blood cells, those of our especially red blood cells. And as they go from there, the capillaries that go into what? They go into the veins. And the veins are like a small, like a river, a slow-moving river or something. They don't beat. They're just moving and pumping back to the heart, where the heart pumps out to the arteries, and then the arteries go all the way down to the capillaries, and the capillaries go into the veins, and these big veins move back into into our heart, the circulatory system. The life of the flesh is in the blood. The heart weighs about 11 ounces. That's not too much, is it? And it keeps the blood moving. You know, what was it, like 60,000 miles a day? I mean, that is an amazing amount of blood being moved. So let's go on to the immune system. The immune system protects us against disease. What causes us to have diseases? Well, things like bacteria and viruses, you know, and fungus and that get in. And so the immune system is our battle line, our soldiers that are on the front lines fighting whenever our body is attacked. The most important of these bodies or soldiers are called the white blood cells. And the white blood cells have a host of different specialized, and they specialize into certain invaders that come, and they search out and destroy these. And they flow not necessarily in what we call the cardiovascular system, but their flow in what's called another system that's in the immune system called the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is a network of vessels similar to the blood vessels, but they're full of lymph, which is a white, watery substance. And these all travel to our lymph nodes. We have lymph nodes, different places, you know, lymph nodes. And these lymph nodes are the bases where they attack, where the white blood cells are going to be attacking these invaders that come into our body. So, and the white blood cells then are produced again. They're produced in the bone marrow. And also now they think they're also produced in the thymus, in the spleen, and in our tonsils. So get your tonsils removed. Yep. They produced some of our white blood cells. So that's our immune system. Wow. So let's go a little bit on the respiratory system. The respiratory system's main function is to supply tissues with oxygen, and to remove carbon dioxide. Yeah. Yes, that's what our respiratory system does. The air passes through what? Passes through our nose, into our nasal passages, through our pharynx, and through our vocal cords, our larynx, and through our windpipe, and down into these bronchial tubes, and down into the lungs. The minutest place where everything really happens is in the alveoli. The alveoli is where the oxygen and the carbon dioxide pass between the blood and the air. And these are little thin-walled sacs that are very, very important. So the dissolved oxygen from the inhaled air comes in inhaled, and it's carried to every cell. It has to go through like I said, all these, and then and the inhale and go back out the same way that it came in. And that's what respiration is really. And so let's go on to the digestive system. The digestive system is in our thoracic and abdominal cavity, two cavities, and there's a canal that goes through. When you eat something, it's a canal. It's called the alimentary canal, and it goes from your mouth all the way to your anus, right? That's the whole digestive alimentary canal. And the function of the digestive system is to break down food so that the food can be absorbed by the bloodstream. Now it starts out from our mouth and our teeth, chomping up the food quite a bit, and then going down, meeting the enzymes actually in our salivary glands, and so meeting this and this chemicals coming in, transported through our esophagus. Our esophagus is the transport tube from our mouth to our stomach. And the stomach really is a storage center, but also in the storage center, there are some enzymes there too to break down the food into this chemical breakdown. But most of the enzymes are in the small intestine. And the small intestine makes the digestion complete. And we have a long small intestine, And then it goes into but to the large intestine, which absorbs most of the water from the undigested food. And then in the large intestine, of course, ends in our anus, where it's expelled from our system. That's our digestive system. Our excretory system. Well, it's similar. So we have the digestive system, the excretory system. We're going to talk about that it has to do with our kidneys, right? And a number of other organs. Well, actually, there's a lot of excretory organs in our body. One being our sweat glands. Our sweat glands where we sweat, and this we excrete a lot of urea and salt through our skin in our sweat glands. But then we have the kidney, which filters the blood and removes water, urea, uric acid, and others. And then we have where, after it goes through the kidneys, where this water is removed into, and it's stored in an area called our bladder, urinary bladder. And from the urinary bladder is where we have the liquid waste and everything, and you know how that is. The bladder, it's emptied into what's called the urethra, and that's the tube from the bladder to the outside of our body. That's the excretory system. The nervous system. What about this nervous system? Well, it kind of controls the activities of the whole body, because in the nervous system is the main organ of the master control system, which is called the brain. And then we have, from the brain, we have certain sense organs. What are sense organs? Well, what are our senses? Sight, hearing, touch, smell, taste, pressure, pain. These are all sense organs that go to our brains. And we have certain nerves that are sensory nerves, and then we have certain nerves that are motor nerves. And these are all go from our spinal cord to areas from areas to our body all the way to our brain. Although some do just go to the spinal cord, the quick reflex kind, but most go to our brain. And this is where the electrochemical impulses signal from the brain. So go to the brain and then from the brain. What amazing! We indeed are fearfully, wonderfully made. And then on to our endocrine system. What's our endocrine system? Endocrine means hormones. Yeah, we have these hormones. What are hormones? This is a test question. Chemical messengers. They're produced by various glands. There's quite a few different endocrine glands, and these endocrine glands secrete these hormones, and they regulate the chemicals in our body for growth and things like digestion too. And other endocrine glands for reproduction and sexual activity. So we have a lot of hormones, right? You know about hormones. So the next system is the integumentary system. The integumentary system is our skin, and it protects the body from all of our surroundings, like bacteria and all these things that come in. So it's very important that we have our skin, our protector, from being invaded. Otherwise, we would just not be, right? So, and then we have the skeletal system, which we're going to do in the next chapter. And there's 206 bones, and then ligaments connecting the bones and giving support to make our body rigid so we could stand up. The skeleton is so important. If we didn't have a skeleton, we'd just be a blob of material, right? So the bones also store calcium. And in the cranium is like the cranium major bone protects our brain, our master control. We need that cranium, don't we? And then our rib cage protects those delicate organs like the heart and the lungs and the vital organs. And then we have the muscular system. Muscular movement. Movement. We have voluntary. That means we know we're consciously moving something. That's voluntary. And then we have involuntary. That's like our heart beating. They operate on their own. We don't have to tell our heart to beat. It just beats. That's involuntary. And then we have different muscles. Our heart muscles called cardiac muscles. And then we have also skeletal muscle. So muscular system is very important. On to our reproductive system. We need the reproductive system to keep the human race going, so that we can have moms and dads and babies, right? And so we are a living, beautiful being, but we come from conception. What is conception? It's where a male gamete sperm cell meets a female gamete cell. It's called fertilization, and yes, that's the beginning. That is where life begins as a human being. And the child develops in the organ called the uterus of the mother. And that's the womb. That might be a test question too. And let's talk about homeostasis. What is homeostasis now? Going through all those systems, you'll be going through them again. But homeostasis is where the body systems work together to maintain a stable internal environment. Let's say it again. Homeostasis, body systems working together to maintain a stable environment. And we have in our body feedback systems, one being negative feedback. That means a reverse. Negative means reverse. Say that your blood pressure gets too high, so then your body works to bring that blood pressure down. So it works opposite. It triggers to do an opposite effect. And then we have positive feedback, and that's maybe things like fever and blood clotting. It's basically the effect, the positive, that the change in the fever, and the fever gets higher because it's positive. We rarely have very many positive feedbacks in our body. Mostly are negative feedbacks where one action responds to another action, opposite action. One action makes an opposite action. And then we have the positive feedbacks being one action makes it get more, like elevating our fever or our temperature and that kind of thing. So let's go on to your your questions here. The first question had to do, what were the body cavities? Cranial, spinal, thoracic, abdominal, pelvic cavity, right? There we go. And then the systems: cardiovascular, immune system, respiratory system, digestive system, excretory system, nervous system, endocrine system, integumentary system, skeletal system, and muscular system. Those are 10. And the last of all, number 11, is a reproductive system. So, and what does our cardiovascular system do? Bring food and water and oxygen to the cell and carry away the waste spots. It's the transport system. And the immune system is our body's defense system. And going on, let's see. You can go on and look up these things as viscera are the soft internal organs. The system is a group of structures that function together as a unit to perform a job. An organ is the smaller units in a system. The alimentary canal is the digestive canal from the mouth to the anus. Hormones are chemical messengers. Endocrine glands secrete the hormones. The uterus is the womb of a woman, and the feedback mechanism helps maintain homeostasis to detect changes in responding. So that's it for that part of the chapter. So now we can go on to the second section.